Hello, so this came earlier, the V-715 I was having delivered from America. It finally came, so that's good. I actually got one despite the fact that, whether or not they're allowed to export these in America with their very strange surplus laws, I don't know, but here it is. And it appears to be fully working. I've done some circuit checks on it. I've made the battery sit a bit tighter in the housing. I've tightened up some screws and all things like that. But obviously at the moment, I've not really got enough materials to make that needle move properly, but I think it is working. Right, you're banned, red barred, for constantly spamming shit in the chat, so there you go. You did that last stream, so bye. Alright, Unknown Russian. Here we are. So yeah, it seems to be working, as said. If I put it down to the circuit check and do that, yeah, it stops in the circuit check bit. If I put on 0, obviously you can 0 it. Bear in mind, this is one of those meters that displays different at the height, but if I have it flush with the ground, yeah, that 0 is where it's meant to be. So now if we go to, times 0.1, what will happen is in a minute when it warms up, the needle will go to 0, and then it will be all ready to use. It is actually sitting correctly if it's that way up, but when you do that, obviously gravity makes the needle move a bit, but yeah, there we go. So, yep, this is the one where if the needle moves, Evening Richard. Oh look, there's somebody impersonating me. Let's go to their channel and report them, and as well as hiding them. I can report them from here, that's good. Yeah. But yeah, mods, looks like you might have to end up doing a bit of work tonight, I'm afraid. Seems like we've got a few cunts deciding to join the stream. But yeah, so this is the one where you never want to see the needle move, because obviously on the 0.1, I suppose that's not too bad, because that only goes up to 0.5 Rontgen there. But if you're on the times 100, that would be 0 to 500 Rontgen. So if the needle's moving on this, you're pretty doomed. But yeah, nice sort of simple ion chamber unit. So if we just put that off again a moment, if you want to see how simple this is compared to that bloody German one, this is basically the ion chamber there connected to the screen. You've got some silica gel in the bottom that they've put in there to keep it from getting too damp. You've got your circuit board there with your step-up transformer and all those sort of bits. And then the most interesting bit is the bit to calibrate it for the different voltages there. And you can see they've actually labelled it times 100, times 10, times 1, and then one that looks like a 1 but a bit different, which will be the 0.1 setting. So yeah, this is a nice simple device compared to that German one. All right, Richard, well, I'm sure those idiots will come back. There's your little circuit diagram on the bottom of there. So yeah, unlike that German monstrosity, which I actually got briefly working last night after playing about with it somehow, and then it stopped working again this morning. This is what an ion chamber unit should be, nice and simple. So let's just put him back on, put him to 0.1 so we can carry on warming up, and wait for the needle to get back where it was. So another thing, evening to everybody, let me just show you what I was in the process of doing. As that was recommended by a couple of people, including Survive yesterday, I've got one of these multimeter, so I can check which bits are actually not delivering currents on the things for my light up screwdrivers. And then what I was in the process of doing was checking this again, the CDV 700, because as I said, I managed unfortunately to break that. So it's a very nice simple board in there. If I can get that way, you can see it on webcam. That's literally all the components there are to it. Other than the thing, there's the back of the board for that. So what I'm going to do is see, obviously, the annoying thing is trying to get power to this while you're actually working on it, because, the battery bits have to screw on, but you can't have the battery bits screwed on if you're actually working on the board, just because you can't get at anything. So what I'm obviously going to need to do is find some way of powering this without the proper batteries attached. And then what I can do is start going through it and figuring out, which little capacitor or whatever's blown on there, and get a replacement one, and then hopefully get this thing working again. Although annoyingly, where I've been working on the probe, it might be difficult to get the probe back exactly as it was, but, it's better than throwing something like that away or having it as a brick that can't do anything. I don't know. I'm not that into airsoft. I wouldn't spend 600 quid on an airsoft gun personally, but I suppose a DHAC MG42 would be really expensive anyway. What you'd have to do is see what other airsoft guns of similar, like actual quality are, and then see how much more the MG42 is. Because unless it's, you know, if it costs way more than other similar BB guns, it's a rip-off. That's the easiest way of paying for it. Yeah. Do you mean the Polish MC1? It's perfectly fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not a brilliant mask either. It's a very cheap sort of civil defense mask, like some of the Soviet ones behind me. You also notice. But just before I started streaming, I got a little bit of tinsel and put on the GP5M PMG2, so it looks a bit more Christmassy. But anyway, let's have a look. Do you need zeroing again? Oh yes, you need ever so slightly zeroing again. So let's get you just down to 0. There we go. All the way up. And in a moment, that needle should settle on the 0. Hopefully. Oh yeah, there we go. Although, as I said, this is kind of gravity driven as well, this needle. But yeah. It's a lot simpler, at least in that bloody German unit, which I've also been playing about with when I got to work last night, and then it stopped working again. But yeah, all I'd say of airsoft guns is, compared to other guns of a similar quality, because they're obviously not real firearms, you've got to look into, you know, the velocity, the quality of the components, and, you know, check how that price that one will compare to other airsoft guns of a similar kind of price range, rather than model of gun. Do it on like what's internally in it, sort of thing. That's just how I do it. It's like if you were buying a Geiger counter and you said this Geiger counter's $600, is it worth it? I'd say, well, what do other Geiger counters cost that do a similar load of functions? You know, buy the one that has the best functions at the best price. If one had a different case and it cost $200 more, just that case, I'd say no, don't do it. I already answered you on that, Iron Man. Mine doesn't drain batteries fast at all, but as I said to you, don't leave the batteries in it when you're not using it, because it's one of those devices that will drain the battery even if it's turned off. So if you put fresh batteries in it, use it for a bit, turn it off, take the batteries out, you should get decent battery life out of it. If you're constantly running the IR illuminator on the top setting, like 7 or whatever it is, that's going to drain the battery fast as well. But yeah, thanks, Rich. But oh look, there's another one. Let me just report them before you block them. But there we go. Just because obviously it's nice if they actually end up IP banning whoever's doing it. I've not got round to doing any of that. As I said, the first thing to do will be get the new liner in it, check it works for new liner, then we can move on to painting and sandblasting, whatever else. But yeah, I'm assuming it's that little sad fucking Neo Papa coming back doing that, because for those of you that don't know, I had sort of a demented fan a while ago who started harassing people, so I blocked him, and then he sort of made it his mission to stalk me. So it's probably him, because I don't know how many other people would be as sad as him, but, you know, just thought I'd point that out. I'm sure he cries himself to sleep at night, but I know I shouldn't be giving him any bait, but I am. But anyway, so yeah, the current thing will be working on the CDV when I find a good way of powering it, because annoyingly, I don't know, looking at the circuit board, if there would just be some way that I can attach a croc clip to some point, because you'll see there's multiple positives and minuses, right? Because basically with this, how it works is the 4 batteries each have a positive and negative point on them. You know, like there. There'll be some others on there as well that are a bit harder to see. And the point is that what I want to try and do is see with croc clips if there's just kind of 2 points I can attach the equivalent voltage to the batteries on, just so I can start doing circuit tests. But yeah, that will be my current sort of project, is trying to figure out what's wrong with this and how to fix it. Worst comes to worst, what I'll do is buy from anything radioactive. The replacement boards they do, because they do like modern boards that fit in these that have modern electric components. That, you know, you just essentially cut this one out, put that one in, and it fixes nearly all the problems with it. This is actually very simple in terms of electronics. Look how little is on the board. only a few capacitors and things like that. In terms of how these work, Geiger counters are really, really simple. I know there's nothing wrong, at least with the tube in my Geiger counter. There might be a problem with like the probe and that, which is why the wire's been cut, as you can see. That. It's also a weird wire in this because it's got a it's got like a grounding wire than the normal wire, where most Geigers would just have a positive, you know, minus two separate wires. But yeah, anyway, that's what I'll be doing when I get to work on that with the ampere. Not ampere, you know, what do you call them? I'm trying to think of the proper name for them. Sort of voltage tester, multimeter type thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so is it all working now? Peach, now you've actually put a proper CO2 in it? I just find them interesting. It's like all this stuff, isn't it? It's all related, gas mask, Geiger counters, NBC warfare type stuff. So yeah, you know. But yeah, then this obviously is an ion counter, not actually a Geiger counter, although a lot of people call these Geiger counters. They're not. And these are even simpler mechanically inside. So for the people who didn't see it earlier, this is literally, that's the detection bit there, the ion chamber. There's your circuit board, and there's even less to the circuit board on this one. Actually, it looks like there's a bit more on the circuit board, but that's just because nearly all the electronics are housed in here rather than being on a separate unit. And then the bit that does all the work is that chamber there, because radiation ionizes inside it, creating a charge that you read on the reader. But there we go. So let's put him back. There we are. So that's that. Even survive. All right, one man army. That's annoying, Peach. So does the other mag work? Because I know with some airsoft guns or whatever, or BB guns, it's a bit like the bloody sort of real ones, where certain mags are just prone to jamming, aren't they, and others aren't. Right. So yeah, survive. What you missed was, obviously, like you were recommending the other day, got one of these, just so I can actually simply do the tests. Making what click? That doesn't click. It's not a Geiger counter if you're looking at the 715. It's an ion chamber. The Geiger counter that I was showing earlier won't click either because it's broken, and that's why I was talking about repairing it. DP75s don't actually click, they beep. The only one that you'll hear click in here, and it does make a very nice clicking noise, is my mini monitor, actually. So let's put the speaker on, turn him on. There you go. So yeah, that's the only one in this room at the moment that will click, because all the others either don't click or are broken. So there's that. There you go. Train man, this is the last time I'm going to tell you, ask him. If you keep asking me how to buy stuff from other people, you're getting blocked, because what's the fucking point of asking me how to buy stuff from other people? So that's your last warning on that. Keep asking me questions about somebody else. When you refuse to ask them, you get blocked, okay? Because you're obviously doing it on purpose now, I should think. Yep. Ion chambers are different than Geiger counters because they literally don't have a wand or anything like that, like Geigers do. They don't rely on a Geiger Muller tube. They have literally a single bit of metal inside that, you know, basically electrons or whatever enter it, create a charge. In terms of like displaying that, they can look a lot like Geiger counters, but these actually aren't. So let me show you the German one I've been working on as well. I'm sure a lot of people recognize this. This one. So I've been trying to see if I can do some repairs on this bastard. And that's the weird German ion chamber, because they had to overcomplicate everything. So, you know, compared to that CDV I was showing you, yeah, compare this German monstrosity to the CDV. Annoyingly, I got this working last night, and then now I've tried it again today. It just, as soon as I turned it on this morning, it was like, no, I'm not going to, see any radiation. Why would I do that? But I suppose I can turn him on again and just check in case he works. But just try not to shock myself, because obviously having it here isn't the best idea in the world. But yeah, at the moment it's just maxing out. If I show you that. But yeah, I don't actually know what's wrong with this, but like I said, it was annoying. Oh shit, that was a shock. No, it doesn't click because it's not a Geiger counter. How many times? If it's not a Geiger counter, it won't click. The clicks come from a Geiger Muller tube. These devices, ion chamber units, do not click because they are not Geiger counters. So let's put that back in there. And as I said, I'm not going to play around with live electronics on the stream because that's a good way of getting shocked. But yeah, the problem I'm trying to figure out with this one is why sometimes it will work and then it will randomly decide not to work. I guess it's just because it's not a very good ion chamber in there, because it's an overcomplicated thing, unlike the American one. But there we go. That's all right. Insulted, but yeah, it's literally a case of, Geiger counters are the ones that click. And again, it's hard to tell what isn't a Geiger counter until you get quite into them. But what makes a Geiger counter is the Geiger Muller tube, which is like the probe you detect with. See, like the DP75 in the background, where that's got a probe. Because the probe is essentially the bit where when an electrical charge is made in it, that's what makes the click, because it counts clicks technically. But yeah, there you go. I don't know, it would be a pretty boring compilation if it's just me blocking people, because a lot of the time I don't even say anything when I block them. It's only been today just because there was that random person coming back over and over again. We already know who it is, most likely. But but yeah, the thing is, Train Man, though, it annoys me that if I tell you something like that, you don't listen, and Chris has told you, and it's good that Chris has told you and everything, but you've basically listened to him. But then again, I don't know if later on you're going to ask the same question again. What do you mean paste made to block radiation? The thing is, you can't, other than beta radiation and alpha, you can't even block gamma. Lead shielding reduces the amount coming through, but it doesn't even block it. So no, I don't think you could make a paste that blocks it. Again, if you had something that was very dense, I guess you could lower the amount getting through with some sort of paste or gel. But the fact is that, and this is actually the video I filmed today, even like lead shielding does not block radiation, because a lot of people are incorrect thinking it does. It basically lowers the amount coming through. But yeah, the thing is, like with lead, is the reason lead stops radiation is it's because it's very dense. But with gamma, what actually happens is it's just when gamma hits it, there's a slight chance the gamma interacts with the lead. If not, it carries on through. So basically, the thicker and thicker you make lead, the less gamma gets through. So it's more like sound insulation than it is, like a shield. Yeah, and it'd be pointless to survive because you wouldn't be able to get it thick enough to actually do anything. But yeah, when I demonstrated that in the video earlier, even with a fairly decent bit of lead shielding, I was able to demonstrate that you're maybe cutting down 10% of the radiation getting through. If you actually look at some videos, people get like the really strong radioactive samples that are actually housed in like a lead block, and they demonstrate with the block closed compared to open how much radiation is getting through, and you'd be surprised how little the lead stops. But yeah, that wouldn't stop it survive, because the point is gamma radiation, you can't really stop it. Your best bet of gamma radiation is to get as far away from it as possible. Distance is probably the best protecting factor from gamma, because it loses energy in the air pretty quickly, even though it's still, the most efficient at going through air. But with most radiation with gamma, they say double the distance, quarter the dose, I believe it is. Which basically means if you had, like a gamma emitter there, every time you double your distance from it, you're getting quarter the dose. So essentially, the best way of not getting irradiated from it is to get furthest away, not try and put loads of shielding up. Again, shielding is important for the right reasons, but it's more, you know, it's kind of hard to explain, but hopefully you get what I'm getting at. That the most important way of avoiding it is, almost avoiding it, not trying to protect yourself from it. With beta and everything, yeah, sure, use some metal, and then you can pretty much make it completely negligible. But yeah, with gamma, there's essentially no point trying to hide from it, because it's going to get you if you're that close to it. It's like when you see the pictures of the liquidators and all that with the gamma stuff they're wearing, the lead sort of bits of lead offcuts, they're not really going to actually do anything. If you measured, let's say whatever it was, 15,000 Rontgen per hour on that roof, what the lead shielding is doing is maybe cutting it down to like 14,000 Rontgens going through them, with that how thin that lead was. So if it was me personally, I'd probably not bother with the lead, and you just want to move as quickly as possible, not have the lead on. Just go, if you are on about those Unknown Russian, go on eBay and literally type in uranium glass. That's just the name of it, uranium glass. Because yeah, uranium glass is a pretty simple thing to get. Not really insulted. It has the kind of rubbery smell all those things do, but it doesn't smell really any noticeably different than any of the others. Yeah, I'll wait for some more questions to come through now. Don't forget there's merch as well below on the Teespring link. What, the Sellafield one? Survive, you're on about something else? Oh, I've heard about that, but yeah, I'm not properly heard about it, so I don't know what it'll be, but yeah. Hopefully it's actually something nice, because I know Trump's upset everybody, hasn't he? Because he's actually done more to try and make peace with North Korea than a lot of the other presidents have in ages. 2 F1 grenades and a Hungarian stick grenade, all obviously deactivated or training ones and no filler. But yeah, the point is, I guess, don't crash it is the proper answer to that. That I know that kind of sounds like it's defeating the point of it, but with a lot of things like that, the point is that, you don't have anything go horribly wrong in the first place. Otherwise, it's like, putting a band-aid or a plaster on an amputated limb that, it's so pointless in the sort of grand scheme of things. Yeah. Now, not just them, Quentin, every single person that was involved in the cleanup, doctors, all those sort of people, anybody involved in it, that reduced the risks to other people and paid the price for it. Or, thankfully the ones who didn't really have any ill effects, but well, it depends how they're disposing of it, because if you're like Sellafield, you're literally dumping it in the sea, which is one of the worst things you could possibly be doing with it. But again, we had this nuclear waste argument on another stream with a load of different people all saying what they thought should be done or shouldn't be done. We're not going to go back into that. Well, you could if you didn't have a launch failure. But again, there's nothing you can do, is it? Then bury it, and burying it isn't really a great idea. Well, we were very briefly insulted because somebody brought it up, but the original Fallout games, I really like Unknown Russian, but the problem is they're very hard to get into now because of how sort of mechanically old they are. Even though you can run them at least fairly easily on new systems, now they've kind of done the re-releases of them. Fallout 3 is a bit meh. New Vegas is very, very good, probably the best one. Fallout 4 is a bit meh. Again, it could have been a lot better, but it's still a good game. Fallout 76, well, they started repairing it, and now they're kind of breaking it again by putting in all this premium content in the game nobody likes. Yeah, my favorite game isn't any in the Fallout series, but New Vegas is definitely the best one. The funny thing of the Fallout games, does anybody know why the radiation measurements in the Fallout games are really, really poorly done? Not in the original 2 Fallouts, but in like Fallout 3, how Bethesda changed it. As in rads. Yeah, rads per second. Why that's really stupid. But it's quite interesting if you're actually kind of into nuclear physics. But long story short, is rads are Rontgen absorbed dose. So 1 rad is essentially 1 Rontgen absorbed by the body. And in general, obviously, in most places, you have Rontgen per hour. In the most radioactive bit of Chernobyl, supposedly, it was something like 5 Rontgen per second. But, you know, that's the point, that you'd have like 5 rads a second for the most irradiated place on Earth regarding nuclear war or not. And most places would, you know, be like rads per hour. So in Fallout, you can get multiple rads per second, which is literally physically impossible. And this is meant to be hundreds of years after a nuclear war. It just wouldn't happen, especially because the half-life of actual a lot of things like cobalt-60, cesium-137, strontium-90 are like 30 years. So the point you're 200 years later, they're pretty negligible radiation levels. They would certainly not be giving you Rontgens per second. It's safer to use GP7 filters, but they're still not safe. The reason being, GP7 filters have an extra particulate layer at the top, which is a bit more better made. So if there was 2 things containing asbestos, would you rather breathe through the thing like the GP5 that's got a little bit of cotton wool trying to stop the asbestos coming out, or the one that's got an actual proper particulate filter at the top? I know which I'd pick, but it still doesn't mean it's safe. It's just safer. No, annoyingly, I've never really enjoyed the Metro games, and they could be quite good. It's just, for me, and I replayed 2033 quite recently just to see if I could get back into it. The issue, however, the Metro games is they're way too linear and kind of cinematic. I don't know, cinematic is the right way of saying it, but you know, where you don't get to do a lot of things. Like, it's like, oh, the camera's going to move and you're going to look at this, and then the character's going to do something essentially in an in-game cutscene. Apparently, the newer Metro games are a lot better for not doing that because it's like more of an open world game. But yeah, 2033 and Last Light are just kind of meh to me because so much of them is just kind of walking along on rails. Funny that a Metro game is on rails, but you know what I mean. But yeah, that's the reason I always like Stalker series more, because obviously that's a big open world kind of thing. No, never played any of the Walking Dead games. Yeah, exactly. That's probably the reason I actually, if I ended up getting Exodus, liking it a lot more than the first 2, because the first 2 to me are kind of like, go here, look at this, go here, look at this, little shooting segment, go here, look at this sort of thing. No, I've not played Chernobyl. It's on early access, isn't it? I've heard it's had really mixed reviews from that, though, so I might wait and see it, you know, when they get it a bit more patched and fixed. How good is it then? All right, that's all right, Train Man. But yeah, as Chris said, if he didn't answer you in the chat, find him on another platform or whatever. But yeah, the point is, don't sort of keep asking me how to contact another person. But yeah, all right. Hopefully you've got your answer then. All right, yeah. As in an A10 Warthog? Sadly, no. I do not have an A10 Warthog unless you meant something else. Thunderbolt 2 A10. But yeah, for what this is quite good, although a lot of people think these are awful. But again, I think they're the people who don't understand what they are and how they work. Especially because it's Rontgens per hour on it, not milli-Rontgens, which is why it'd be useless for most people. Although there's a video where a guy's adapted the electronics in this and made it run at the milli-Rontgen range. So on 0.1, it's basically, I'm trying to remember how he said he did it, but basically it would be like times 1 would be 0 to 5 milli-Rontgen per hour, times 10 would be up to 50 milli-Rontgen per hour, times 100 would be up to 500 milli-Rontgen per hour. And obviously the 0.1 is like the 0 sort of bit milli-Rontgen per hour, which is actually a lot more useful for most people. But it's a shame that you need to add a load more electronics in to do that rather than just being able to flip a switch. But yeah, the thing is with 2033, there's a lot to see in it, isn't it? And there's like kind of a lot of exploration you can do in individual bits. It's just not the style of gameplay I like. Yes, if you had the right certificate for them, Unknown Russian, because if they're lever action, that's the same as bolt action over here, where because you're doing that like every shot, it's actually not considered, you know, like assault rifle kind of thing. But yeah, I'm sort of interested with this. If I take this to where I've got my items, does it give me a reading? Just second. I doubt it will, but it's just kind of interesting. Oh, I think it might be ever so slightly higher than background when I did that. But I'll have to demonstrate that in another video because I'm not taking all the lead shielding apart and everything to demonstrate that today. But yeah, I reckon I did get on the 0.1 bit, I did get the needle to move a bit then, and not due to, you know, me moving the things. As I said, the problem with these is if you do that, the needle moves a bit anyway. But if you've got, you know, like a check source near it, and you're kind of moving it slowly, if you see the needle move more towards the 1, you're probably getting a reading. I don't know which one you mean by the A10 gas mask. Let me search it. But A10 gas mask. Right, the ones coming up are the Czech M10, so that's not an A10. The S10, which is also not A10, and the Serbian M1, which is also not an A10. So what do you mean by the A10? You have to put the full name in for it. Right, Insulted, all I'm going to say to you is if there's people doing shit like that, right, you don't give them any attention, because that's what they want. So yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll remove your comments there. And don't mention that again, just because, you know, you don't want to give people like that attention. But like I said, the nice thing now is I'm chatting with everybody on the Gas Mask Discord, and everybody's happy on there and all that. So there's no issue there. People doing that are generally just shit stirrers. So like I said, don't give them attention, because we had some coming into the stream right at the beginning. Right, the good thing is Hotshot, I did get an email back finally about the cesium. And basically the only reason they hadn't sent it and taken payment was my bank didn't like work with their thing. So they got me to PayPal them. I've done that, and then hopefully this week I'll get a dispatch and the tracking thing, and it'll probably be after Christmas. But I might even then, using some radium dials, be able to get these to move, but I'll have to try that properly in a video, and I'll have to have enough that, you know, it's concrete, not just a bit of movement making the dial move. Ah, yeah, that would make sense. But he did put A10, sorry, A10 twice, because he asked me, do I have the A10? And I said, A10 Warthog, and he said, no, the A10 gas mask. But yeah, S10, of course I've got the S10, I like the S10. CT12, FM12 are better, but S10 is fine. What is the black fabric mask near the white GP5 on your right? If you mean that one, that's not actually black. That is sort of a dark green-blue colour, but that is the PTM one, is it? There's the white version up there and that version, and it's the mask that's there where my finger is on that chart. It's a mask to protect you from fallout, so basically it's like a big dust mask kind of thing, so you don't inhale irradiated materials. It doesn't provide any protection from gas. I don't know if he was actually spamming the chat, Richard, but that's all right. I've never seen him before, so you know, oh wow, his loss that his first comment wasn't a proper one. What do you mean by I could read the weather? I don't know what reading the weather has to do with fallout masks, because I'm pretty sure weather reports wouldn't tell you how many megatons have gone off nearby as ground bursts. I mean, I know if the wind's blowing your way, you've got a problem, but I'm pretty sure you'd want a mask like that on if there'd been some ground bursts, rather than just hoping the weather report says it doesn't blow your way. Oh, what, like actually have a weather thing going, yeah. Stormy spells here, you know, whatever here. But have it with a nuclear detonation thing. Fallout coming this direction. No, I think you'll be fine, Insulted. The thing is, with stuff like that, it's very low risk. It's just I would never encourage people to do it. You know, I'd say the risk of inhaling asbestos is still a lot less dangerous than inhaling something like radium dust. That's really going to fuck you up. But yeah, it really depends. But don't breathe through them. But if you've done it in the past, you're probably fine. Oh, that's interesting. M69. I guess M69 is the name of the mask then, is it? Let me search Danish M69 gas mask. See what comes up. Oh, it's the Canadian C3 export version they had. Of course it is. Yeah, if you search Canadian C3, it's the Danish, the version that was exported to Denmark. Normally it had like a plastic bit on the voice diaphragm. But yeah, Chris, that will be a Canadian C3 exported to Denmark. Annoyingly, my C3 isn't anywhere handy I can grab it, otherwise I'd show you the C3. But right now, and you'd notice it's that mask, but yeah. Hopefully next year, Quentin, but the problem was the first tour company I tried to book one with never got back to me, so won't be going with them. But it's, again, trying to find one where the dates will fit in with when I can get holiday from work and whatever else. Well, it's officially, I think, called the C3 Export, but obviously Denmark called it the M69, as he was saying. But yeah, actual, even Canadian C3s are pretty hard to find now for whatever reason. I guess just the surplus stock of them dried up. Yeah. That would be good hotshot. It would be very good as well for testing the iron counters properly, but except although I expect the German one will just only work when it wants to work because it's annoying like that. But in terms of yeah, doing videos, it should be really good for that. Something I'd love to get, but again, they're expensive and I'd have no real use for it, is a scintillator, whatever they're called. You know, like they're kind of like Geiger counters, but they're really good for detecting gamma and X-rays. Like far, far better than Geigers are for those things. But again, you know, they're like one of those things that price point wise probably end up being something like 500, 600 quid, where a basic Geiger counter is a lot cheaper. And I think you have to replace parts in them a lot more often. But they're very interesting if you watch videos from people who do physics kind of stuff, doing videos of them. Especially, when they put the Geiger counter wand on something, you barely get a reading, and then the scintillator goes off the charts, and it's actually the scintillator's correct, just the Geiger counter is giving you an artificially low reading. Well, what Mike suggested, Peach, and this is kind of a good idea when I get round to fully completing it, although I did look and I don't think it would quite work with the ones, is with the Fallout 4 Game of the Year edition, they did like a Pip-Boy phone holder. And it'd be using one of those to put the DIY Geiger counter in. And where the Pip-Boy's display would be where your actual display is for it. But sadly, I think looking at the dimensions of how it would work with a mobile phone, because it literally fits a mobile phone and then your wrist's under it, the homemade Geiger counter would be too bulky to fit in that case. But otherwise, that's quite a good idea. It would look really cool, wouldn't it? Actually, having a wrist-mounted Geiger counter, you could definitely do it. But when you say till the wind blows, do you mean when the wind blows? About the like the Raymond Briggs thing about the 2 old people dying of nuclear fallout? Yes, I have seen that. It's on my recommended list of depressing nuclear films, along with Fred's The Day After, If the Bomb Drops, QED, A Guide to Armageddon, The War Games. Speaking of War Games, or the War Game, where is the Blu-ray of that I've got? I've still not opened yet, which I really need to get around to watching. There we go. Certainly on the Gas Mask Reddit told me they'd release this on Blu-ray and it was only $8.99. But yeah, the War Game came before Fred's in like the 60s and it was banned because it was too realistically depressing on what would happen if Britain got nuked. But yeah, that's definitely worth a watch. Moderate violence, sexual violence references. But yeah, War Game's very interesting. They're not thick foam, if that's what you mean. Yeah, they're pretty thin in that regard, although I think it will depend from manufacturer to manufacturer of them, how good the quality of them was, like a lot of that stuff where, hundreds of thousands of them made by different factories. I might do Hot Shot. I've not planned anything yet. I'd like to do one, but what day does Christmas work out this year? Is it a Wednesday? Right, Christmas is on a Wednesday, and there will be a video on Wednesday regardless, because I always do videos at 5 p.m. UK time Wednesday that are scheduled. I might be able to do a Christmas stream, but that will totally depend on what time we're going to visit my grandparents and everything else. Because sadly, because they don't have Wi-Fi, I can't stream from theirs. But whether or not insulated they'd actually protect your ears properly, I don't know. Would they reduce the noise? Yes. Are they like proper ear defenders as far as ear defenders go? I really don't know. They are essentially ear defenders, but whether or not they're good enough ear defenders, where you'll still be doing damage. You're just reducing it. I don't know. Personally, I'd definitely use real modern ear defenders over the Soviet things, just because you never know how good those old sort of things were. When is Hanukkah normally then? I really don't know, because that's a Jewish thing, isn't it? But, obviously, because I've never celebrated it, I do not know when it is. But do they normally fall on different dates then, and just occasionally they fall on, like, the same day? Like the 25th or whatever? Because, I mean, Christmas is always the 25th, isn't it? Boxing Day is always the 26th. New Year is always the 31st. New Year's Eve, obviously, the 1st is always New Year. There's some things that are always, the same dates, but then there are other things, aren't there, where they fall on different dates. So is it one of those things? The thing is, I don't mind actually learning about different things like that, because it's quite interesting, and then it makes you more of a tolerant person, doesn't it? And I don't mean tolerant as in, tolerant because you have to be or you get gulagged. I mean, just generally understanding people's beliefs a bit better. It's just quite interesting in that regard. You know. So does it have a thing where it will fall on different years then, Hotshot, or does it always fall on certain dates and then rotate through those dates? I've just never looked it up. That's why well, yeah, what was Insulated saying? Yeah. Don't you like my custom AR-15? No, I don't coin collect. My dad used to coin collect, but then, funnily enough, because a lot of his gold coins are worth a lot more as gold to be melted down, he sold all of them, which might sound horrifying to some people. And from a historical perspective, I can sort of find that horrifying. But, if your antique coins are worth so much as antiques, but in their scrap gold value, they're worth a lot more, I know what I'd do as well. Ah, okay. No, that's very interesting, Hotshot. I had no idea about that, but yeah. Happy Hanukkah then, or Hanukkah, however it's pronounced then. Hope you enjoy that then, if that's something you celebrate. Hope it's nice for you and your family. But yeah, the thing is as well with Christmas, I don't even like all the materialism about around Christmas. The older I get, the more depressing I find that. Especially when there's the sort of thing where people would only do something nice at Christmas and wouldn't for the rest of the year. That kind of thing. That is always very depressing. And of course, you could even raise the point that Christmas shouldn't even be on the 25th of December, because that was just a thing the Catholic Church did to appease the pagans in Europe when they were conquered and forced into Christianity. But, that's getting a bit deep, isn't it, for talking about religious festivals, I guess. I suppose one of the reasons as I've got older, I always hated materialism around Christmas is because I've always worked in jobs that are, retail focused. And when you realise how much retail spending goes into Christmas, that does get a bit depressing. Yeah, luckily Black Friday isn't such a big thing in the UK, is it? It's like you can get some deals online, and I have seen videos where there's people still going crazy in shops that have discounts on, but who cares, Most of the stuff I'm interested in, that kind of stuff isn't ever on a Black Friday deal anyway, because it's all, Haribo straws just sitting behind me there, but yeah, gas mask, night vision, Geiger counters, ion chambers, radioactive check sources. That's never on offer. Okay, that's an interesting video base. Where did you shoot that then? If you had, I don't know if you had a previous comment it didn't show, but I don't think it normally does that with mods. But yeah, because I know there are some ranges you can go to, aren't there, where you can shoot things like that. But the thing is, if you had a Ruger 1022 with a zeroed scope, it would still be very accurate. 1022s are lovely for what they are, because of how cheap they are to shoot if you're in somewhere like the US where you can buy the ammo for them cheaply. I like irons for the reason that they're very simple. Not a lot can go wrong with them, especially if they're well built. Obviously, it depends on the build quality of them, because, I really don't like AK iron sights. But in terms of something like, what's it? Trying to think of the word for it. In terms of something like, well built iron sights, as long as you've got them zeroed correctly, they're always going to be correct. They're pretty durable. You're not going to break them like that. Whereas, yeah, the problem with scopes is they add a lot more weight and bulk to the rifle, potentially, or whatever you've got them on. They can break easily. It's sometimes hard to get the right eye relief with them. What is the most famous gas mask? Trainman says, I bet the GP5 for most people, just simply because it's the world's most mass-produced mask, as far as everybody's aware. In terms of like historically, something like the English box respirator or corrected English model from World War One is pretty famous because, you know, World War One gas warfare was actually used, and the American and British soldiers used that mask. World War Two, again, there's probably not a really famous one because different nations had different masks. Yeah, for the Cold War, probably the GP5. Yeah, I think there's more of a skill to it, isn't there, Survive? Especially if you had it like on a bench rest. I know there's not a lot of skill to bench rest shooting. There is a little bit because you can still make it go off. But yeah, you know, if you have a perfectly zeroed scope on a bench rest, all you're essentially doing is just pulling the trigger or essentially squeezing the trigger to do it correctly. And like, oh, I've put that exactly on target, or I've put that exactly on target. With iron sights, there's, I think, more of a skill of you know, getting them exactly right for the eye relief and everything else. That's annoying, Richard. Hopefully you'll get that sorted. But yeah, it'll be a bit annoying if you can't. I barely shot my air pistol saying that survived because I've got that really nice what's it called? Umarex PX4 Storm. Do I have that somewhere handy where I can just get out and show people? Because I'm pretty sure I'd probably yeah, there it is. All right, let's just move this helmet out of the way. What's that caught on? Ah, the strap. There we go. It's caught on there. But yeah, this is what I needed to get out anyway. So yeah, in this old ammo can, that's where I've stored my air pistol and the accessories for it. But yeah, there we are. Smells really nice in there, but I think that's just because it's been stored in there with like a load of silicone lubricant for a while. But yeah, there's more of a skill, isn't there, to aiming with iron sights? Just simply due to yeah, I'll definitely do a slow-mo video on it, Peach. That's a really good point. So my new camera can do slow-mo to a pretty good degree, and I've not even tested that yet. I haven't even worked out how you get to it on the functions menu. But yeah, this is a very nice replica. Yeah, not all the bits move on it. You know, like the real safety doesn't move. It's got a different safety on it. You know, that's like a higher degree of a safety because you have to pull a bit back to move it back into the fire position. But in terms of, yeah, yeah, it's good. What I might do is actually put this on the shelf. Just hit that with my elbow. What I might do actually at some point is put this on the shelf behind me as decoration because people rarely see this, and then I might use this box for putting more of my items in when they arrive, like I've done with the other box, and put lead shielding around it. Because it's not an airsoft gun, Corporal. It's where we have lots of stupid laws which never match up with each other. And airsoft guns are not the same thing as air guns. And as that's an air gun, not an airsoft gun, because it shoots pellets rather than plastic BBs, it's fine. Yep. I didn't make that law up. It's stupid, isn't it? But yeah, that's how our law works. Viralk, however it's called, are meant to be really good guns, aren't they? I've never shot a Viralk, sadly, but I think it's one of those brands, isn't it, where if you're buying an air gun of a certain type, they're definitely one to consider, because although it's not to say that they'll always make the best air rifles, because there are other very good high-end air rifles, Viralk, or however it's pronounced, definitely do very nice things. Big round box behind you, Trainman. You looking at the DP75 Geiger counter? That's the carry case for a Geiger counter. So it's just got a Geiger counter inside. See the probe coming out the side? There we go. Next to grenades. Hard trying to aim your hand while looking in a webcam that's mirrored. But yeah, that's the probe for it. That's the carry case. So inside the carry case is the Geiger counter unit itself. You know, like a load of the probe's tube is stored in there. Yeah, that's the good thing, Peach, isn't it? It's like what we've been saying with Mike and everybody recently, is if you want to get a thing now, there's no point buying a DEAC gun like those because of how strict the law's getting on them and how much more they're costing and how much more welded shut they are. You might as well just get a realistic air pistol or whatever because they're cheaper. You can actually have more fun with it because they're functional and they're less restricted by law. So, you know, win-win. Right, don't ask stuff like that insulted, because that's potentially breaking the law. I'll remove your comment. That's not like a massive warning to you or anything, because loads of people ask stuff like that. But when they deactivate a gun, the point is that they can't be reactivated, at least not easily. Obviously, doing so would be completely illegal, so don't do it. Yeah, 6 foot-pounds the maximum for air pistols, 12 foot-pounds the maximum for air rifles. Unless you've got that air rifle on a firearm certificate, then it's unlimited in power potentially. The pewter gas mask, I regret buying Unknown Russian because it's so bad. I mean, I don't regret buying it in the sense that I can do videos showing you this is definitely not how you design a gas mask, but, you know, it's very, very bad in that regard. Right, we've been on the stream 50 minutes. I'll be on for at least another 10 more minutes. Are any good questions coming in? What about Rhodesia, Joseph Stalin? It's called Zimbabwe now, but what about it? Because you asked Rhodesia a question mark. Oh, so yeah, if something bad happened, could you potentially use it to save your life? No. The thing is with deactivated guns, when they're deactivated properly, because again, I know some countries for a deactivated gun, they might classify that as a gun without a firing pin in or something like that. But how they deact guns like that, and because it's part of the display, I won't get it down, but I'll run you through it. Actually, I'll show you what I can show you that with. Bear with me a second. The RPK is the perfect example for this. So let me get him out without knocking loads of stuff over. If I can untangle him from the PPSH. Right. I can demonstrate with this why you cannot easily reactivate them. So here we go. So what they have here, they welded this so you can't even move the charging handle. I'm not going to take the back cover off, because annoyingly, if you take the dust cover off, you can't get back into it properly. Can't put it back together properly because like the springs don't work inside properly. But yeah, one of the things they've done obviously is you can see that they put a massive cut into the barrel and welded it. So even if you sawed the barrel off to like that point, it's not going to work. Obviously, so that's had that happen. Bits have been taken out of the gas regulator and all that, so that's not going to work. And if you looked inside, there's loads of welds, you know, and loads of stuff like that they've done to it. So yeah, these aren't going to work. If somebody was trying to use a gun like that, they'd be better off making a zip gun than trying to reactivate a deact gun, at least with UK standards. That's why I find it really stupid when they put tougher laws on deacts and other things like that. Yep, the one that I was just showing at the start of the video. The V-715 arrived from America properly, and it works. Or at least I think it works. If I do a circuit check, for example, do the circuit check. Oh, look, that works. If I go to 0, you can 0 it properly, which I've already done. And then if you go to that, it seems once it warms up, the needle does move as you'd expect it to. But obviously, as I've not got anything giving off several Rontgen per hour, I can't really test it. But yeah, so that's the latest bit of gear. Nice piece of equipment, very simple. Interesting, this is property of Texas Department of Health, calibrated July 93. So actually before I was born. But there you go. But yeah, the Texans were still using this until July 1993, which is probably when it was last done. There's also a thing on the side. It was inspected and calibrated in 1989 as well. Look. I hope that's not blood all over that, like where they bash somebody's head in with it. I suppose you could use it for that, couldn't you? Wham. Not that I'd recommend it, because you might damage the electronics inside. But, yeah. Yeah, magazines are removable. On most they are, but again, that's a thing that they might have changed now. Those are in rounds, obviously, are not real. But yeah. But I think on some newer ones, they're stopping you even doing that. You know, they're designed to be completely unable to be, you know, taken apart and anything done with them. Let's put that back there. It's quite hard to do while looking at the stream. But yeah. Cool, Trayman. Yeah, it won't let you post a link, but go ahead and try anyway if you want to. Generally blank fire as corporal. In some films they have real guns just firing blanks. You know, just as you can have a blank fire that can't fire your rounds. And that's how in The Crow, Brandon Lee got killed, like the actor, because they had the gun that they were firing live rounds from in part of the film, and then they fired blanks from it, and the barrel hadn't been cleaned out properly. So there was a bit of like lead shrapnel or something still in the barrel. They fired a blank, as far as I'm aware, this is how it happened, because I've heard a couple of different theories, but what was like the debris in the barrel got shot out by the blank and killed somebody. The other one I've heard is that when they fired a real round, one of the bullets actually got stuck in the barrel, and then when the blank was fired, obviously it had enough force to shoot the bullet out. But yeah, regardless, it killed him. Which is why you probably shouldn't ever use a mix of blanks and real things from the same firearms. My favourite movie by the director of that one, guys, though, what's his name, is Dark City. That director did. I know he did iRobot as well, didn't he? He's not done all that many films, but yeah, Dark City, I'd say, is easily his best one. Yeah, EU regulations are worst of trouble, man. Because when we had new spec in the UK, that was pretty thoroughly deactivated, and then EU spec is like UK new spec, just with more deactivation done to it. Especially because the EU doesn't seem to grasp, again, because legislators, they didn't seem to grasp. The most frustrating thing about it was when a lot of the EU spec stuff came in, it was after one of those French terror attacks. The terror attack was carried out with Yugoslavian AKs, black market firearms, real firearms that came from Yugoslavia, or Serbia, Croatia, wherever, but, former Yugoslavian firearms. The EU's response was that firearms that are in public ownership, such as, sporting rifles, need to be more restrictive, and DEACs need to have more laws put on them. Because, when somebody literally carries it out using a black market firearm, it has nothing to do with DEACs or sporting guns. Of course, the sensible thing to do would be put more legislation on those, not on arms trafficking and things like that. So, but again, that's one of the reasons I don't like the EU, even though we're getting a bit political now. But, if something infringes on my hobbies or other people's hobbies that there's nothing wrong with, Squib. Yeah, I've heard that before, Peach. Squibs are also when you have like the exploding blood things come out of people as well. Like but that's more like a prop thing where they have like little blood packets with a little explosive behind it, and it goes, like somebody's been shot. Yeah, that's what they're normally meant to be, survive, if they've got blanks in it, to show that the gun's firing blanks and not actually, in a real fireable state, I think. For me, probably the XM28 I bought. But again, it depends what's the most valuable in resale value or the most I paid for, because it doesn't always mean the same thing. Yeah, I mean, that came in after Dunblane, didn't it? And the guy who shot up Dunblane was a pedo who did legally at the time own firearms. So the pistol one there makes a bit more sense to me. But it'd kind of be like if you had a mass shooting in the UK that was carried out with a black market, firearm, like somebody had smuggled in. Let's say they had a fully auto AK smuggled in, in a freight container or something, shot up a load of people with that, and then they'd make the law stricter on everything else, like crossbows or air rifles or something, rather than actually saying we need more people checking parcels coming into the UK. That's like the equivalent, I'd say. It's not on a spring mechanism anymore. It moves, but all it does is it just limply moves back and forth as you move it with your hand, because it's essentially not attached to anything inside anymore. So it moves, it's not welded, it won't do anything, essentially. So it's not under spring tension. My M1 carbine's under spring tension still. So you can pull that back and essentially rack it on the FAO. It will just literally, if you pull it down, it will stay down. If you push it up, it will stay up. Yeah, exactly, a troubled man. Again, that's the thing that doesn't make sense, does it? If somebody wants to do something malicious, they can still do it. Exactly. It might be. I don't know how fast it'd be. Would you still have to swap the percussion caps, wouldn't you? Or would it depend if you can get one sort of percussion caps literally right on the back of the bit you pull out? Well, the interesting thing apparently a lot of psychologists say in Salted is when they have something like that, they should never give, the news should never put much time on showing the face of the killer or whatever, because if they're losers that do something like that, that's what they want to do, is become famous. They should talk about the victims and then basically, here's the name of the loser potentially who shot up the school, moving on. But when they put, you know, like face of a killer on all the screens, that's making, you know, these losers go, I'm a loser at life, but if I shoot some people, I become famous. You know, that's their kind of attitude. But sadly, you know, like I said, most news agencies are pretty irresponsible anyway. But anyway, that will be the end of the stream. That's gone on for an hour. For the most part, good stream, except for those really weird random. Well, it was only one person, wasn't it, with multiple accounts coming on. But you know, well done to mods for blocking them. I've reported all of them as well as blocking those guys anyway. But yeah, it's the same sad loser that does it every other time when he decides he's going to do it. But yeah, thanks everybody. Have a good evening. I'm going to be out at a rehearsal soon for the pantomime. And that's that. But yeah, see everybody. Goodbye.